Hello and welcome to Introduction to AI for Nonprofits, where we're going to talk about using AI for social good. My name is Michelle Johnston, but I go by MJ, and I've worked in information technology for almost my entire working life, with a few detours into spiritual direction, jail chaplaincy, and life coaching. I've worked in the for-profit, education, government, and nonprofit sectors. And while I do a variety of technology work, my passion is helping small nonprofits learn about and implement AI in their organizations. And that leads me to my disclaimer. I want to be upfront that I'm coming from the point of view of a tech and AI enthusiast, but I have done a lot of research on the negative impacts of AI so that I can try to provide a balanced viewpoint in this presentation. So let's dive in. I've organized this presentation into 16 topic areas that I think apply to all nonprofits. And in the spirit of transparency, I want to share with you the AI tools I used in putting this presentation together. I'm not going to go into all of the details, but you can hit pause and read how I've used each of these tools listed in this slide if you'd like. I just wanted to acknowledge that this presentation was a collaboration between me and all my AI tools, as these days, most of my work is a collaboration between me and my AI tools. So let's get started. Understanding AI begins with defining its core concepts and also recognizing its evolution. So we'll start by clarifying what AI means and defining its various branches. A simple way of defining AI is the science of making machines or software smart. And as you can see by the diagram, AI is kind of an umbrella term for many technologies. And the technologies such as ChatGPT and Gemini, two applications that you might be familiar with, are large language models, which are a subset of deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning, all of which falls under the umbrella of AI. So, expanding on the simple definition of making machines smart, AI is the capability of machines or software to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. Hence, the swap out for human for artificial. At a basic level, AI is math and algorithms that function in various ways. Some AI systems function in a predictive way and some function in a generative way. Predictive AI uses algorithms and statistical models to predict future outcomes based on historical data. And this type of AI is widely used in sectors such as and decision making. Generative AI, on the other hand, refers to algorithms that can create new content, such as text, images, and music, by learning from existing data. This category of AI includes large language models such as ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. This is a visual representation of how that works. The LLM calculates a probability percentage for the possible next word and then chooses the word with the highest probability of being correct. And in this example, that word is math. Now, AI might feel like a relatively new invention because that's all the tech industry is talking about these days, but it's actually not new. In 1950, Alan Turing published Computing Machinery and Intelligence, proposing the Turing test as a benchmark for machine intelligence, which laid the philosophical groundwork for AI as we know it today. Today's AI has already passed the Turing test, and new benchmarks are constantly being created as the models continue to improve. Some AI milestones that you might recognize include IBM's Deep Blue beating world chess champion Garry Kasparov in 1997. In 2011, IBM's Watson won Jeopardy! And in 2016, DeepMind's AlphaGo defeated world Go champion Lee Sedol 4-1, and AlphaGo's Move 37 in Game 2 became famous as a creative, unexpected move beyond human intuition. Now you can watch the AlphaGo documentary on YouTube for free, and I highly recommend that you do so. Finally, in November 2022, AI started to become mainstream with the release of ChatGPT, which gave everyone the ability to use. Advances in AI have been happening so rapidly, it's hard for the humans in the benchmark tests to keep up. Hence, this ChatGPT generated image of AI running a race. AI is everywhere. Every major tech company is infusing AI into their products. This image shows just a few of the more well-known applications using generative AI. These are a few applications and services that you might already be using that have AI embedded in them. From virtual assistants like Siri and Alexa to personalized recommendations on streaming services, AI influences our daily routines and choices, often without us even realizing it. Since this presentation is specifically for nonprofits, I want to give you just a few nonprofit AI stats to give you some context and help you realize that you're not behind or alone. According to the 2024 AI Equity Report, 92% of nonprofits feel unprepared for AI. Nearly 60% of nonprofits don't trust AI systems yet and are unsure how AI might shape their future. And 82% of nonprofits are using AI informally and ad hoc, mostly to generate content like drafting donor emails. And this creates a gap for using AI collectively for the mission of the organization. If we look at all industries, 75% of people are already using AI at work, and 46% of them started using it less than 6 months ago. And this is according to the May 2024 Work Trend Report. So given the date of this report, these numbers are probably much higher now. Additionally, other industry reports show that most organizations don't have AI policies or guidelines, and they haven't trained their staff on the use of AI, which means AI is being used with no guardrails and in ways that aren't benefiting the entire organization. So what are the barriers to AI adoption? I list 9 barriers on this slide, but the main ones are lack of AI strategy, limited internal expertise and the learning curve, obtaining internal buy-in, and skepticism regarding potential negative social impacts, even though there is a general belief that the benefits outweigh them. And I think this is bigger in the nonprofit industry, even more so than the for-profit industry. I'm going to cover the good and the bad of AI, but I want to talk about the downside first so we can end on a positive note. And for each area of concern that I do talk about, I will talk about possible mitigation strategies so that it's not going to be a total Debbie Downer. So let's start with the less than positive social impacts of AI. Bias being one of them. So marginalized groups have felt the impact of biased tech from facial recognition cameras, hiring software, criminal justice systems, surveillance, and extractive practices. And many people are also concerned about the corporate concentration of power in AI, such as with companies like OpenAI, Google, and Meta. If you want to dive a little deeper into this topic, I recommend Hannah Fry's book, Hello World. She does a great job of talking about both the negative and the positive impacts of AI, including examples that aren't just theoretical. Bias in AI is a recognized complex problem, not a solved issue. So what can we do about it? Here are 2 examples. Instead of outsourcing decisions to AI, we can keep humans in the loop. So that means, like, if you have a hiring system, you wouldn't let AI be in charge of that entire process. There would be humans in the loop of that hiring process. And then we can thoroughly review AI output before publishing it or using it to make decisions. Industry is also trying to reduce bias in AI. There are some major corporations, standards bodies, and research institutes that are studying and attempting to mitigate bias in AI. And then there's open source models that can be used as a starting point to create AI systems that specifically address bias. For example, using data sets that are curated to include a diversity of text, images, etc. And there are organizations that are attempting to create these diverse data sets. Okay, let's move on to the environmental implications. As I'm sure you already know, the harmful environmental impacts of AI include energy consumption, water usage, carbon emissions, and electronic waste. But there's an even bigger unfortunate truth. Even without AI, data centers are a problem. Essentially, almost every online activity, digital service, and data-driven business process relies on the infrastructure housed within data centers. Cloud storage like Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, iCloud, and Dropbox, web hosting, e-commerce, social media, financial systems, etc. And I'm sure you've heard about the huge environmental impacts of Bitcoin mining. Again, there are companies, nonprofits, and researchers working in the following areas to try to mitigate the environmental problems, including measurement and standards, efficiency or green AI, renewable energy, AI for sustainability, which is using AI to address the environmental challenges, and there's transparency efforts as well. AI is literally both sides of the same coin. It's both an environmental challenge and a potential solution to those challenges. This is a quote from Sims Witherspoon, a Google DeepMind climate leader. AI gives us the opportunity to understand the challenges we face, understand the science, and understand the problems that are driving climate change. AI can also help us optimize current systems and infrastructure. We can't just start over from scratch today because life depends on the systems that we use day in and day out. So in other words, we have many huge environmental issues to solve, and although AI is one of them, it's the only technology that is likely to help us solve all of them. All of that was mostly about the harms of corporations and what they're causing and what some of them are doing about it. But what about us? We're not creating AI or the data centers. What can we do? We can educate ourselves and then make informed choices. According to Hannah Ritchie, head of research at Our World in Data and also a senior researcher at the University of Oxford, the reason we often think that ChatGPT is an energy guzzler is because of the statement, AI uses 10 times more energy than a Google search. According to Ritchie, even if this is accurate, what's missing is the context that Google search uses a really tiny amount of energy and that even 10 times a really tiny amount of number is still tiny. This is a chart from Epic AI showing that a typical query of an average user uses far less energy than a standard light bulb, or even just running your laptop for 5 minutes. You can see a typical user at the top of the chart and a power user at the bottom of the chart. Today, most users are in the tiny range, but I think more and more as people start to discover AI and its benefits and start to use it, then they're going to move into the power user range as they start to experience those benefits. Now, I don't want to suggest that AI is not a problem simply because the energy usage of ChatGPT query, and I'm just saying a single query, might be small. What I am trying to do is put it in the context of our environmental concerns writ large. It's not that our personal choices don't matter, it's just helpful to consider them in the context of our overall environmental impact. And this is another chart comparing the various things we could do to help the environment. Living car-free is on the far left and using ChatGPT is on the far right. Obviously, these stats will change as we increase our use of AI, but as of today, giving up our cars would have a greater positive impact on the environment than giving up AI. So I'm going to use myself as an example. On the one hand, I drive cars, I fly in planes, and I use AI, all of which negatively impact the environment. But I rarely eat beef or dairy, I try to conserve water, and I try to buy as little plastic as possible, all of which help reduce my impact on the environment. So you could say that for every hamburger I don't eat, that's a few guilt-free interactions with ChatGPT. But the truth is that there's just not a perfect solution, only thoughtful choices. There's a lot of things that we do as humans that impact the environment negatively. And so I think it's a personal choice in what we decide to do to try to mitigate or balance out that harm. In my opinion, corporations are the bigger problem, and they have a history of trying to make us think that our choices are the problem. And plastics are a good example. Instead of finding alternatives to plastics, corporations put a lot of money into marketing campaigns that convince us that the solution to the problem that they're creating is recycling the plastic, much of which can't be recycled. In my opinion, it's a diversionary tactic that allows them to continue making billions of dollars while we leave our expensive dinner leftovers behind, because taking them home means using a plastic container, which makes us feel like we're single-handedly killing the planet. Okay, rant over. Having said all that, I recently found out about some new research from MIT Technology Review with the headline of "The emissions from individual AI text, image, and video queries seem small until you add up what the industry isn't tracking and consider where it's heading next." So, as with many things related to AI, different groups are saying different things, and everything is changing at a very rapid pace. And especially when you consider that one of those charts that I showed you was a ChatGPT query, that's text, but image generation and video generation have really seen some incredible advances, and those types of AI queries are starting to take off, and they actually use a lot more than a little ChatGPT query. So my best advice is to find trusted sources of information that are keeping up to date on AI research and the advancements, and then those people will pass on that information to you. If you're interested, I have a resource list that includes some of my trusted sources, and I'll include that information on how to get that list at the end of the presentation. On the organization level, I do think that there's more upside than downside to the thoughtful use of AI. And when I say on the organization level, I mean your nonprofit organization. You can choose to use AI in ways that serve as a support to deepen human connection and mission-aligned work, not to replace it. Instead of automating humans out of jobs, you can use AI in ways that augment human work. Okay, the last of the three areas of concern is the fact that AI sometimes messes up. Tech people call it a hallucination. For example, if you ask AI to create a social post, it might make up a statistic that has no basis in fact, or insert a made-up customer testimonial. A very recent example of this was a summer reading list that the Chicago Sun-Times printed. It contained some books that didn't actually exist. Now, they got the list from magazine giant Hearst, and they just reprinted it. So Hearst clearly used AI to create the list, and neither organization reviewed it before they published it. Now, hallucinations might be fun in the privacy of your own home, but not out in the world for everyone to see. So always, always, always carefully review what AI gives you before you put it out into the world or use it to make important decisions. Now I'm going to quickly talk about the potential economic impacts of AI. Most people believe that AI will have both positive and negative impacts on jobs. According to Paul Reitzer, founder and CEO of SmarterX and Marketing AI Institute, 80% of what knowledge workers do every day will be AI assisted to some degree in the next 1 to 2 years. If you think of your job as a collection of tasks, AI will assist in many of those tasks. Some of the positive impacts will be automation of time-consuming and repetitive admin tasks, allowing you to redirect your energy towards strategic thinking or creative problem solving and mission-centric work. And AI can augment and enhance our human capabilities. Some of the negative impacts will be organizations won't need to hire as many people. AI is likely to replace entry-level jobs, which is a huge problem when you think about the fact that senior level people are senior level because they gained experience in entry-level positions. So some job sectors such as programming and customer service are already seeing layoffs and AI replacing the entry-level positions, especially in the tech industry. Essentially, the nature of work is rapidly changing, requiring employees to learn to work with AI, and there's an increased demand for AI literacy and training, and there's limited in-house AI expertise within nonprofits, which means there's a growing demand for AI consulting services to help with strategy and implementation. And I just want to make a note here, because everything is focusing on AI in terms of the tech industry. All the software applications are trying to build AI into their software. Everybody's spinning up companies to help organizations build AI, implement AI. Be careful with, how do I say this? Be careful with people offering promises that seem like magic or miracle, like we're going to automate your workflow, you'll never need to hire another human. If you look at the headlines, yes, there's corporations that say that they're laying off people, and some of those corporations are having to go back and rehire those people, because I don't want to say AI is not all hype, but it is being hyped. A lot of it is hype in terms of the extent of the capabilities that it can do. So we're moving in a direction of more automation. We're moving in a direction of more AI, smarter AI, more capable AI, more agentic AI, but we're not quite there yet. So I think taking a measured approach and asking questions of the people that you hire, if you hire people, when you're saying that you can promise to do this or that, what exactly do you mean? How are we going to do that? How are you going to do that? Like, try to get some concrete details just so that you don't pay a lot of money and then realize, oh, this was actually vaporware. That's what we used to say before AI with just regular software. Tech companies would claim that AI, or not AI, that their software is going to transform their business in some way. And often, not only did it not transform their business, it created a lot more work and headaches. So just a caveat there. Going forward, the future of all work will be, what will the human do and what will the machine do? This is a great breakdown from SmarterX and the Marketing AI Institute. It shows the various levels of human AI collaboration. And for most of history, we've been at level 0, all human and no machine. And today, most of the work that we do is at the level of 1 or 2, which is mostly human with a little bit of AI, or half and half. So again, the human in the loop. There's a few systems at level 3, and at level 4 is when we reach AGI, or artificial general intelligence, which I'll touch on in just a minute. But my feeling is that for I want to say at least the next year or two, we're not going to be at level 3 or 4 in terms of just handing everything over to AI. Because these large language models hallucinate, and there's still issues that the engineers are trying to work out, even though they have a tremendous capacity to help us in our businesses, we are not at a point where we can just turn things over completely to AI. So again, if we go back to the job market impacts, absolutely AI is having an impact on the job market and will continue to, but I do think a lot of things are going to maybe transform into different types of jobs where we're using AI as a collaborative partner, which is why I think it's important to start learning AI now and start doing some test pilots and implementing it in your organization. Okay, taking all that into consideration, I think the skills of our time are curiosity, discernment, and your domain expertise. Because going forward, most jobs will be a collaboration with AI in the same way that most jobs currently involve a computer. The goal isn't to replace the invaluable human connection that is the bedrock of nonprofit work. Instead, it's about using AI to handle tasks that free up your time and energy for deeper engagement, more strategic thinking, and expanded reach in carrying out your mission. And here's a good example. You could spend so much time researching and applying for grants, which nonprofits need to do if they want to stay in business and continue to serve their mission. But wouldn't it be better if you involved AI in that process, not completely handed it over to AI, but reduce the amount of time that you have to spend on that so that you can focus more time on the core aspects of your mission? That's what we're talking about here. Okay, let's move on to AI and the arts. And I'm specifically calling this out because of the huge increase in capability in image generation and video generation, and even with Google's new Flow product, I think it's called, creating movies, essentially, AI is starting to really be considered in the arts. And so there's many nonprofit arts organizations, and the capability of AI in these areas, such as image and music and video, they've gotten so good in a short amount of time, and the topic of AI in the art is still being debated, and it doesn't really have any clear answers yet. People in every field that produce content, whether that's books or photos or music or movies, they are both using the technology and they have concerns about it. The concerns include, how should AI companies compensate the people who created the data that their models are trained on? What about copyright violations? Where is the line between inspiration and imitation? And what happens to the creative voice when the machines start making the choices? One example is Darren Aronofsky, the Oscar-nominated director known for Black Swan and The Whale. He launched a new storytelling adventure called Primordial Soup in collaboration with Google DeepMind, which is Google's AI lab, and their VO3 video generation AI. In this, their studio is focused on exploring the intersection of narrative film and emerging technologies, specifically generative AI. Now, that's an example of someone in the arts who's using AI, but what about the concerns? There are several copyright lawsuits underway related to the use of content in AI training process. And in terms of your data privacy and security, you should be aware that paid accounts have more data privacy protection than free accounts do, with team and enterprise accounts having the highest level of protection. And if privacy and security is a concern for you, probably a good idea to read the user agreements or put them into NotebookLM and ask questions to figure out which level of these platforms you feel the most comfortable using. Some AI models have personalization and data control settings, and when you're evaluating these tools, you should ask about privacy and security, not just because of your own concerns, but because the more people ask, the more it shows that there is a demand for security and privacy. ChatGPT is a good example. It has personalization settings that you can configure. And according to the AI labs, personally, identifiable information, or PII, is not useful for model training. So again, according to these labs, you don't have to worry about your personal information showing up in someone else's chat, although that is not necessarily the case with companies like Meta, whose AI's discovery feed lets you share a chat, and it doesn't make it clear. It's actually a little bit confusing. When you try to share your chat, it looks like that you're sharing it with somebody privately, when in fact, the content is becoming fully public. So given Meta's history with the use of people's personal data, I personally steer clear of their AI products, but that's just a personal choice. But if you think about the business model of Meta is to keep you on their platforms as long as possible, then they can serve you up ads. And how do they serve you up the ads that have the highest probability of you buying whatever it is that they're serving you up? It's your personal information. So Meta has a personal interest in your personal data so that they can continue to make the billions of dollars that they're making from ads. And quite honestly, that's how Google search works as well. It's tailoring the ads that it targets to you based on your search data and other things. So I don't think there's any company that's in the clear for wanting and using your personal data, but I do think that some companies are trying to do a little bit better job of the safety and security. All right, back to ChatGPT. Free plans don't have a choice but to have their data used to improve the models. However, on paid accounts, you can turn off the option that says improve the model for everyone. And ChatGPT also has memory, which you can go in and modify so you can delete things that you don't want to be part of its memory. And there's also an option to start a temporary chat, which won't be part of your history or your chat memory. Now let's talk about how AI has already been very beneficial to humanity. This image on this slide represents an AI called AlphaFold, which was developed by Google DeepMind and has revolutionized the field of biology by accurately predicting the three-dimensional structure of proteins from their amino acid sequences. And for those of us who aren't in the medical industry or don't have a degree in biology, that might not mean too much, but this very technical information is a really big deal for medicine, because prior to AlphaFold, over the course of 6 decades, tens of thousands of biologists painstakingly worked to figure out the structure of 150,000 proteins. Then, using that work as training data, a team of around 15 people at DeepMind developed AlphaFold, which determined the structure of 200 million proteins in just a few years. So that was decades and decades to get to 150,000. And then in just 2 years using AI, 200 million. That is nearly every protein known to exist in nature, and roughly 1 billion years of research in just a few years. That is incredible, and honestly, AlphaFold is one of the reasons that I have great hope in AI's possibility of figuring out how we address our environmental concerns and some of the other big questions and issues that we have in our society. AlphaFold has already helped scientists in several ways. It helps scientists develop a vaccine for malaria. It's made possible the breaking down of antibiotic-resistant enzymes, which make many life-saving drugs effective again. We've all heard, probably most of us have heard, of antibiotic resistance. instance. And it's even helped scientists understand how protein mutations lead to various diseases like schizophrenia and cancer. And in the category of tech for good, in July 2021, DeepMind launched the AlphaFold protein structure database, making AlphaFold's predictions freely available to the global scientific community. They also released the open source code for AlphaFold 2, making it possible for other researchers to use. Now the fun part, use cases. Some of the general use cases include ideating and brainstorming, planning, researching, summarizing large amounts of information. And while most people are using AI for content creation and editing, the items that I have here in bold, I think are some of the more interesting use cases of AI. Some of the task-specific use cases include fundraising, writing, analyzing, and reviewing grants, content creation and editing, marketing automation, survey analysis. That's a fun one. Turning financial reports into presentations or documents with images or social posts, and accessibility, including automatic captioning and transcription, AI-powered screen readers, and alt text generation. There are so many possibilities for use cases, but I narrowed it down to 5 specific examples that I think would be helpful to most nonprofits. The first one is NotebookLM. This is one of the coolest AI tools that I use. You upload your source material, such as your employee handbook, let's say, and then you can ask questions like, what is our bereavement policy? You can upload legal contracts and ask specific questions about the contract, or you can ask a general question like, is it in my best interest to sign this contract? If you're using an AI note taker for your meetings, you can upload those transcripts and ask questions like, what were the action items from the May 15th meeting, or what were MJ's action items from the January board meeting? Additionally, in NotebookLM, with the click of a button, you can create a mind map, a study guide, or a briefing document. And you can even create an audio overview of the content, giving it guidance on what you want it to focus on. And it will be hallucination free because it's only using the information that you upload. So unless you upload some fake news, there's not going to be any hallucinations in the output that you get with your NotebookLM dataset. Deep research is an AI feature that will absolutely alter your understanding of what these AI models are capable of. And what you're seeing in the video is me running a deep research query. And I think when you use it, it might change your perspective on the future of work and how you can work collaboratively with AI. It essentially allows you to do hours of in-depth research on a topic in just minutes. So in this example, I gave Gemini Deep Research a prompt. It gave me a research plan that I could review and modify if I wanted to. And then it went out to the web and it analyzed a ton of data and it produced a 40+ page report based on the research plan in the span of 5 to 10 minutes. It is crazy amazing. And you might be thinking, I don't know if I want to read all of these 40+ page reports. This is true. You can go crazy with deep research and end up with a lot of reports that you don't have any time to read. But you could take that 40-page report and drop it into NotebookLM and have it create an audio overview for you to give you a summary of what the research indicated. The tasks feature in ChatGPT is one example of how you can use AI in fundraising operations and a lot of other things. It allows you to set up tasks that will run prompts on a specified schedule. So as you can see from the image, I had one running that sent me AI prompting tips for nonprofit strategy. This is one of the tips that I received. You're advising a small nonprofit with no tech team, limited digital skills, and about 2 hours per week to explore AI. Suggest 3 practical AI-supported activities that can help them raise more money, improve internal workflows, strengthen community engagement, and each suggestion should be low or no cost, quick to implement, framed in plain language with one recommended tool or method. Now, this is a great prompt, which, by the way, I would have had a difficult time coming up with a prompt so detailed and comprehensive on my own. But ChatGPT is giving me this as an example prompt for my use case. Then I could take this prompt and I could paste it into a new thread in ChatGPT or your other chatbot of choice to see what it comes up with. And if you're interested, I have a list of prompt examples that I can send you that you can tailor to your organization. And then you can start seeing how AI might be useful in your everyday work. It's like getting these prompt examples is a great way to just kind of start thinking about what would the use cases for our organization be? And the details are at the end of this presentation on how you can get a copy of those prompts. Or you can set up your own task and start getting your own prompts. Depending on how much time you have, you might not want to do it on a daily basis, but maybe you want to get a prompt every week and then you want to test out that prompt and see what AI gives you just to kind of get your juices flowing. Okay, survey analysis is another great use of AI. You can take a survey, the data from that survey, from any of the programs that you run, for example, and you can have AI do an open-ended analysis on it, which is super useful for free-form questions. You can also ask specific questions like, of the people who said yes to question 3, how many of them also said yes to question 7? Now, it's not that a human couldn't do some of this analysis, but AI can do it in just a couple of seconds. So I don't think the point of your existence isn't to necessarily analyze survey data. The point is to take that data and do something with it. So if AI is helping you do the analysis quicker, then you could get to the important stuff of actually using the data to advance your mission. Finally, custom GPTs. In ChatGPT, you can create what are called custom GPTs or gems in Google Gemini. And the benefit is that the answers are more specifically tailored to whatever the purpose of the GPT or gem is. So an example is that I have a custom GPT that functions as an executive director for a nonprofit. And when I'm using that GPT, the feedback that I'm getting back is from the perspective of a nonprofit executive director as opposed to just generic feedback. So let's say I wanted to write a blog post that is geared towards nonprofit executive directors, which I did. And this is a funny side note, I did write a blog post once, something related to AI. I don't remember exactly what it was. And then I gave it to the custom GPT that I had. Her name is Christy. She's my nonprofit executive director. And I said, please analyze this blog post for clarity and ease of understanding and, a few other things. And my GPT basically came back and said, I think you want to reword some of this because you're going to scare the heck out of Christy. So I don't know how I worded some of the things in there, but my custom GPT, which knows who my ideal client is, felt that this is going to scare the heck out of Christy. So we need to make some changes here. And I went through those changes and all of them were very valid. And those are hard things to think about when you're coming from, like me, I'm a tech person. I'm coming from the advantage of knowing and understanding a lot of technology. And so something that wouldn't bother me might bother somebody who's not a technology person. That's good feedback to have. So you could do that for your ideal target audience as well. So what is your AI opportunity? In the tech industry, it's widely believed that there will be 3 types of organizations going forward. AI native, meaning that it's AI from the ground up, so those are new companies that are just getting started. AI emergent or AI forward, meaning that you're actively infusing AI into all parts of your organization. Or obsolete. So native, forward, or obsolete. That's what the tech industry believes. And I'm not sure that the obsolete part holds true for nonprofits, but I definitely do think that AI can help you achieve your mission much more efficiently and open up opportunities that you may not have had the human capacity for without AI. And I do think that if you're not using AI and some other nonprofit in your same space is using AI, I do think that that does give them a competitive advantage. So what would it mean for your nonprofit to be AI forward? I like this definition from SmarterX. It means that AI is a core part of your organization's identity and operations. You create a comprehensive strategy that spans people, processes, and technology, cultivating an AI literate workforce, reimagining business models, and leveraging cutting-edge AI solutions. And this is the important part, all while prioritizing ethics, transparency, and trust. And I think those last things are especially important in the nonprofit sector. So how do you get started? The two primary ways are a problem-based model, which is strategic, or a use case model, which is tactical. In the problem-based method, you have a known pain point or a challenge that might be solved more intelligently with AI. You define your problem and you define the value to solve that problem, and then AI can help you come up with strategic brief showing how AI might be able to help you solve it. SmarterX has created a super helpful custom GPT called CustomGPT that can walk you through the entire process, and I will include a link to it in the resources document that I mentioned earlier. If you don't want to get the resources document, you can just Google CustomGPT, or you can just go to the SmarterX website and there'll be a link for it there. In the use case model, you identify tasks that can be automated or assisted with AI, and you start with things that you least want to do, and you ask yourself if those tasks are data-driven, repetitive, predictive, and/or generative. If any of those are true, so any single thing off of the list or more than one thing off of the list is true, then it's a good candidate for AI. The idea is to start small with high impact, low effort applications. The question should not be, what can AI do for us? It should be, what problems are we trying to solve that AI might be able to help with? And what are the things I don't like doing that AI can help with? In other words, start with problems and use cases, not with tools. There's a lot of shiny new AI tools out in the world today, and you can go down all kind of rabbit holes if you start from the tool perspective. So that's why I recommend, and a lot of other people also recommend, starting from problems and use cases. And now a little taste of our future with AI. This is just a small sampling of tech that's already in development or in limited use, just not mainstream yet. Personal health care, wearable AI devices like glasses, predictive home maintenance. That one I really could use. AI hearing aids, which, as we get older, probably most of us will want to use. Robot caregivers, which sounds like science fiction, but they're already in use in Japan. And brain-computer interfaces, which again, sounds like science fiction, but it's already in testing. And there's a documentary. It's not really a documentary. It's an interview by the Alex Kantorowicz from the Big Technology podcast on YouTube. He interviewed the very first guy who's a quadriplegic who got Neuralink's first brain implant and allowed him to control a computer mouse just by thinking, which is actually pretty cool. The thing everyone in the tech industry is talking about right now is something called agentic AI. Everyone's claiming to have agentic capability, but it's mostly automation and marketing hype at this point, although there is progress that's being made pretty rapidly. So the way that I and a lot of other people define agentic AI is an AI-powered system that can reason, plan, and act to complete tasks or entire workflows autonomously, with human oversight at key moments, but not human heavily involved in the workflow. Examples include OpenAI's Operator and Google's Project Mariner, and just this past week, Perplexity released a browser named Comet that has some agentic capabilities. So it's a big thing in AI right now. Everybody's trying to do it, but we're nowhere near, AI being able to autonomously carry out the entire workflow yet. So again, just be aware of the marketing hype. And now the big one, AGI, or Artificial General Intelligence. Unfortunately, there's no universally accepted definition of AGI, but these are a few definitions that can give you a little bit of context. So OpenAI defines AGI as a highly autonomous system that can outperform humans at most economically valuable work, going back to the impact on jobs. It's able to do, another definition is that it's an AI that's able to do pretty much any cognitive task that humans can do, and that's how Demis Hassabis, he's the co-founder and CEO of Google DeepMind, that's how he defines it. And Paul Raitzer, founder and CEO of SmarterX and Marketing AI Institute, which, as you can tell by now, I'm a big fan of, he defines it as AI that is generally capable of outperforming the average human at most cognitive tasks. And that's probably the most helpful definition in terms of thinking about how AGI might impact our work and our lives, since most of us fall into the category of average human. Maybe you're above average, but I would say broadly speaking, most of us fall into the category of average human. I think it's also helpful to know that every large AI lab is working towards AGI. Google DeepMind, OpenAI, Meta, XAI, all of them, their ultimate goal is AGI. And no one knows when we'll get there, but there's only a small number of AI experts that think that it's not possible to get to AI. So it's not a guarantee that we're going to get to AGI, but most people in the industry do believe that we will get there. They just disagree on how fast we're going to get there. So where do you go from here? One easy and no-cost way to start is by doing a tech audit. Look at what you're already using, determine what AI capabilities are built into those applications, and learn how to use those capabilities. The added benefit of doing a tech audit is that it will help you get the most out of what you're already using, and you may even discover that you can cancel some of the subscriptions that you have to things that you haven't been using. Next, create some basic organizational guidelines around the use of AI, which models you're going to use, which plans you're going to get, what are your transparency guidelines. You might want to include some privacy and security guidelines. What are your accountability policies around using AI? And you don't have to start from scratch. The good news is that you can leverage existing frameworks, and you also don't need to make it super complicated and comprehensive. Just get the basics going, and then as time goes on and you're actually using the AI, you can go back and revisit those policies, which is a good idea, and take the learnings that you've had from your use cases and then change the policies as necessary. Then create a small team that will start learning and looking into pilot projects. For most organizations, the best way to get started is to identify quick win pilot projects with narrowly defined use cases and a high probability of success. And finally, if all that sounds overwhelming, you can hire me or someone else to help you. To help you do what? To help you create your AI policies and guidelines, to help you educate your team, to develop a framework for pilot projects that will help you succeed, and to help you evaluate the use cases and the software. Basically, what you want to do is learn, pilot, and then scale. And it's an iterative process. And now your homework is to take some time to think about everything that I've covered in this presentation, review the resource list that I mentioned if you are so inclined to request it, and then you can thoughtfully decide how you want to proceed. And here's my contact information and how you can request the resource list.